Hello students, this is video 4 of our class. It's already been 1 month since our class has started, so time is flying by. I hope your other classes are going well in addition to this one. Okay, so announcements and reminders. I've been slowly checking out your assignments. Overall, most of the assignments are good. You guys seem to be following the directions in the videos well, so thank you. Overall, I can see that you guys, especially in this class, in your major, you guys really give a lot of effort compared to some other students that I've had in other classes. So thank you for your effort, guys. So what are we gonna do in this video? This video is gonna be a little different from the other videos that we've done. I'm gonna focus a little more on improving your English skills. The first part of the video will be about the information in our book, but the second part of the video will be about ways to improve your fluency and pronunciation in English. In this video, we're just gonna focus on fluency, and then I will introduce this week's assignment after talking about the things in the book. I'm not sure if I'll be able to cover everything. It's really hard to judge how long the video is gonna be, but it's kind of funny. For some reason, the program that the university gives us, it's impossible to pause a video after you start it. I don't know why. It's really weird, but like basically I have to always make the video without pausing, so that's why I never know if the video is going to be long enough or too long or too short. So it's like a guessing game every time I make a new video about how long it's going to be. So anyway, let's see what happens. So quick review of last week. Last week we finished the first chapter of the book. We learned a little bit more about Adam's family and the history of the missionaries in Korea. We saw those cool old pictures of Daegu. We also learned about the first 2 Korean presidents of KMU University, who were Shin Tae-sik and Shin Il-hee. And we learned about the campus, and we learned about the idea of tabula rasa. Okay, so Unit 1, what is this chapter about? The chapter is mostly about explaining the philosophy of KMUS University. It repeats a lot of the things from the first unit in the book, and in some cases it gives us a little bit more background information. So I'm going to share the kind of updated information that we have in the first part of the video. And in this video we're going to cover up till page 63 of the book. I'm hoping that most of you have bought the book. I said last time that our assignment this week will be about the book, but maybe that will be next or next week's assignment. But anyway, you should buy the book, right? You know, you're in the class, so try to buy the book and make sure it's the English version of the book. Okay, so let's start with things that were mentioned in the first unit of the book, but they gave a little more details in this book. To be completely honest with you guys, usually if I was going to teach a class like this, I should just read the whole book and then teach you about it, but I want to have the same feeling like you guys, like each unit is something new for me. So basically I'm kind of maybe like you guys, I'm just going unit by unit. So before I teach the class, I read one unit and then I teach what's in it, and then in the second, I read the second unit, then I make the video, and then I read the third. So I have not read the whole book. So I think that's better because if I read the whole book, I might teach things that are in a different unit, and then I'll just end up teaching it again. So I think this way is better. So, like I said, I learned some new things when I was reading this. Okay, so just as a quick review, establishing a university in the southern part of Korea was a dream of Adams. As we remember, okay, fine. Eventually, his son Edward Adams was able to achieve his father's dream many, many years later in 1953. Um, we never learned this in the book. I'm curious if no. Pretty sure his father was already passed away at that time. James Adams was probably dead when the university was made. So that's too bad that he couldn't see the university being made. Okay. The first development of Christianity was more was more widespread and came first in North Korea. So at that time it was just Korea, but we just mean physically the northern part of Korea at that time. Pyongyang is where Sungsil University was started, and Christianity was very strong in the northern part of Korea. But after the Korean War, the center, well, after the Korean War, obviously there was North Korea, and all of the foreigners were kicked out of there or they left, and the center of Christianity switched to Seoul. Okay, so here's something new that I didn't know when I was uh, making the other videos. So I put Edwards, it's just Edward. I made a mistake here. Okay, so Edward Adams, the S should be here. Edward Adams was encouraged by his family and many people to leave Korea after Japan started a war with the US. So you guys probably know that in 1941, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor in the United States, which is in Hawaii. It's basically like it was a military base which declared war on the United States. The Americans were not joining World War II yet at that time, but Japan forced us by attacking us. So obviously that was must have been a very dangerous and scary time for Americans living in Korea because Japan was still controlling Korea at that time, and now they were having a war with the United States, so it would probably would have been very dangerous to be an American at that time. But Edward Adams was obviously a very brave man, right? Because he said, "No, I'm not going to leave Korea, even though the Japanese are controlling Korea." And then after the Americans won the war and kicked out the Japanese, he had another chance to leave Korea. And at this time, he was already pretty much an old man, because there was the Korean War. And as you guys know, North Korea made it all the way even to Daegu. But Daegu was like the last kind of one of the last cities that like was able to hold it and not be taken, right? So like good job Daegu. But what he was doing at that time was helping all of the people who were refugees, that were coming from other cities. He was obviously teaching about God, but at the same time giving them a place, giving them food, giving them shelter. So I mean, I already thought this guy Edward Adams was an impressive guy, but like this even makes it more like, man, this guy was pretty awesome, right? Like he dedicated his whole life to doing great things, and you know, he was living in a pretty dangerous place, but he didn't leave, and I mean, sound like a really awesome guy. Okay, so anyway, after that, the book starts to go into the philosophy of KMUS University. We'll see that there are two main parts of the philosophy, but this is the first part, and then the second part are five fundamental ideas, but we're going to talk about that in the next video. So, according to the book, the spirit of KMUS University is made of three things. This is the Christian spirit, the pioneer spirit, and the service spirit. So we're going to talk about each one. So first is the Christian spirit. So obviously, KMU was started by Christian missionaries. The kind of first school that started was the Kaesung school, right? Which was basically, it was like a Christian. I think started as elementary, and then elementary school, high school, everything, and that slowly got built into KMUS Christian College, and then eventually, after time, it became a university. But obviously, the basis of everything is this Christian spirit. Okay, so as we mentioned in the first chapter, in the first part of the book, the KMUS, the name of the school comes from opening and light, right? The Korean words of K and Myung, open the light. Okay, so this has an additional meaning of basically everybody who works at KMUS and who is a student at KMUS should try to act and behave like Jesus. When you think of Jesus, he was and is a holy light that came to our earth and continues to shine even now, right? So, one way to think of Jesus is that, before Jesus, humans were in darkness, and Jesus came and was this light to humans who taught us the right way to live and gave us a chance to get rid of our sin that lives within us, right? So, okay, that's one way to look at it. Another thing that they mention is that kind of the motto or something that the school believes in is that our school, I think this is a little hard for me to understand because I think this was translated from Korean and the English translation is not so good, so I didn't really get this exactly, but it said the motto is for the kingdom of truth, justice, and love. Okay, so that sounds really good. KMU students are encouraged to share what they learn and spread light as well. So this is mentioned again later, but all of the students at KMUS University should take the education that they get and spread it to others. Spread the light to the world. Okay, I think we're missing something here. Huh. Spread what they learn and spread light as well. Okay, cool. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, next is the pioneer spirit. So, I don't know if you know what a pioneer is. A pioneer is an English word. When I think of pioneers, I think of the American pioneers. The American pioneers were the people who, I don't know, as you might know, America's very big, right? Big and wide. Uh, Most of the first settlement of America started on the east side, right? Like so New York and Plymouth and all these places on the east coast of the United States. And in the middle of the country, all the way to the west, was this kind of unknown land, which was considered very dangerous and um, just very wooded, and very difficult to go across. But there were these brave men and women who were called the pioneers, and they were the ones who basically went all across America and kind of figured out what was there, and they traveled to the west side of America, and they built things, and they were the pioneers. Okay, so a pioneer is somebody who goes to a new land and um, goes where things are not easy and takes the difficult route and builds things, and that's a pioneer. Okay, so the pioneer spirit. As we saw in chapter 1, the establishment of KMU was not quick or easy. It took 2 generations of the Adams family's effort, as well as all of the other Korean people who helped out before the university was finished. Um, Also, like the people who started the school were these missionaries. So a missionary is also very much like a pioneer, because they're going to new countries and going to lands that are not friendly to Christian ideas, but they're spreading the Christian ideas and at the same time doing really positive things like building the hospitals and the pharmacies and all this good stuff, right? So the pioneer spirit is a really good spirit to have, right? They showed courage by going to a new land in order to spread Christianity to Korean people. Our university has also had a lot of setbacks, a lot of difficult times that it overcame. Obviously, the Japanese colonial period was a very difficult time for Korea and Christians and everybody, right? It was a really bad time. And then, amazingly, after that really terrible time, quickly after that, there was the Korean War. So, obviously, Korea has had a very tough history, and at the same time, the university as well had difficult time too. But right after the Korean War in 1953, they got to work to build and start the university. Okay, so one person we didn't maybe talk about enough in the other videos was the first president of not Kim-Young University, but Kim-Young Christian College. So, at that time, KMU, basically the first beginnings of KMU was very small. I think it was just like one little building and not many students and not many things to study, but this was the first beginnings. So this man, Gam Buyol, he decided where the university should be located. Okay, so interestingly, at this time, um, several universities were being planned and built, right? So, um, Daegu University, Daegu Catholic University, Yeongnam University, uh, like a bunch of universities were kind of either being planned or built at this time. You'll notice that a lot of universities were built in Gyeongsan. And the reason why is because the land there is very flat and easy to build on. And it was very wide and nobody was using that land. Interestingly, this led me to, it's not in the book at all, but it made me read about some of the other schools in Daegu. like Daegu University, Yeongnam University. Um, Obviously, Daegu Catholic is another religious school. You could call it a Christian school. In Korea, people really separate the Catholic and the Christian religion, but in America, Christianity is kind of a wide term, and it just means people who believe in the Christian God. And it's separated as like Protestant, which is like Korean Christian, and Catholic, which is Catholic. So, as an American, to me, this is Christian, but as far as I know, Korean people would say they're not Christian, they're Catholic. Anyway, that doesn't matter. But just, it's not important, but I just read, it was kind of interesting. This school was started by French um, missionaries who were Catholic, while, you know, we know that KMU was started by American people. So just interesting history to read a little bit about Daegu Catholic. I encourage you guys, if you're if this class has kind of maybe made you a little curious about the history of Daegu a little bit, you could read about it. Okay, but anyway, Bugam Gambuyur decided that the beautiful hills of Daegu were a better match for the university. So it didn't explain exactly why he felt like that, but I think he made a good choice. I have been to these universities like, uh, Yeongnam and Daegu Catholic and stuff. While some of those universities have nice campuses, I think ours is the best, right? Keimyung, and it's very inconvenient to go to Gyeongsan. It's really far away, so I think our school has the best location in Daegu, right? Well, Gyeongbuk is not bad, right? But ours is pretty great. Our location, I think. Okay. Continuing the pioneer spirit, our book mentions that. Oh, another reason that this school has a pioneer spirit is because it tried many new educational ideas that were not common at the time in Korea. So that was kind of interesting. The book said that um, our university was kind of a trend setter. It was trying some new things that Korean universities were not trying. So, as you could guess, in the 1960s and 70s, a lot of universities in Korea were very conservative and traditional and didn't want to try new things, and they wanted to just kind of keep the same way that was tried before. But KMU tried some interesting things that are still used now in many universities. So one thing they did was to hire professors from all over Korea, not just in Gyeongsan and not just people who graduated from there, but people from all over. Also hired a lot of foreign professors. So KMU has many, many, many foreign professors, and I think that's kind of a uh, special aspect, something that sets KMU apart from other universities. Is something that I was impressed by because I've worked at different universities before, and yeah, every university has some foreign professors, but KMU has a huge amount, like hundreds of foreign professors in all kinds, not just English, but teaching many subjects like nutrition and all kinds of things. So that's pretty cool, I think. I think that's something great about KMU. One thing was that at that time in Korea, professors basically all they did was lecture, and they didn't really have much interaction with students. But KMU required professors to give mentorship to students and make time with every student to meet them and talk about their goals and what they want to do in their life and all that stuff. So that's another cool thing that KMU started in the 1970s and 60s, very early on, and still does today, right? So I'm pretty sure all of you guys have like a mentor, professor who you can talk to if you need help, and I encourage you guys to do that if you have time. A lot of students will not do that because it's annoying, but it's a pretty cool thing that you can do. Also, KMU apparently was one of the first universities to have students filling out the satisfaction survey. Like after you finish the class, you guys fill out a survey and say whether you like the class or not. So yeah, that's an important thing because it lets students speak their mind, and it lets professors know if there's something they need to improve on. So another cool thing that KMU did. It also let students choose their major in their second year instead of their first year. So that's really cool because it gave students time to figure out what they want to do and gave more flexibility to students. So that's really great. Also, a lot of different types of scholarship programs for students. And the last kind of special thing that they did was they awarded Korean family names to foreign professors and other important foreigners in Korean society. So I don't know. I guess that's cool. I like keeping my own name. I would not like to become like Kim whatever. Like I want to keep my own name, but that's just me. Okay, so the last spirit is the service spirit. So I think the translation's a little weird here, right? Like service, we has the meaning of like work or something, but basically this is like helping others, and um, I would translate this as like the volunteer spirit, I guess, but the book says service spirit. Okay, so the book mentions that the reason we go to university is to become an educated person, but part of being an educated person is using our knowledge in the right way. We should never use our knowledge to hurt or take advantage of other people. Instead, we have to help others with the knowledge that we get from university. So that's one thing. And obviously, we know that KMU was started with the spirit of service by missionaries who were serving God. And the missionaries were not trying to profit and not trying to have glory. They were just trying to spread the word of God and to help people. So our school started with this spirit of volunteership, I would call it, our service. And many of our buildings on our campuses are named after people who have contributed to the university. So, we have Adams Hall and Shattuck Hall and all these different names. And when you see that it has a name like that, you should know that that person either gave money to the school or gave some help or helped in some way. So the school really tries to remember all the people who helped to build and make the school better. And lastly, KMU strongly encourages the students to volunteer in the community and like helping old people and feeding, maybe going to like an orphanage and helping kids there, and also there is even uh, traveling abroad to kind of poor nations, building houses, doing all kinds of cool volunteer stuff. So this school has a really strong volunteer spirit. Okay, all right, we have 15 minutes left. So with the last 15 minutes, I told you guys I want to teach a little bit more about English because that's my main job and what I'm trained to do. So instead of having something that's directly related to the book, our next assignment will be related to the book. I want to do something that has nothing to do with our book or anything that we learned, and I'm just gonna have you do a fluency building activity. Okay? Um, the reason I want to do this is because our next assignment uh, in the book will kind of require us to have some fluency, and I thought it would be a good idea to just teach you a little bit about fluency. I heard your introductions. Most of you guys are pretty fluent, but again, I just want to teach you a little something that might help you in your other classes. And anyway, okay? So before I tell you about the assignment, I want to explain a little bit about fluency and what it is. Okay, so what is fluency? It's basically being able to speak without long pauses. It usually means that you can string together multiple sentences and that you can talk with a long time without stopping. So, if you ever take a speaking test like TOEIC speaking, IELTS speaking, OPIC, any of these speaking tests, pretty much always one of your scores on the test will come from fluency. And fluency just means, like I said, that you can talk a lot without stopping. So, for example, if you take a speaking test and somebody asks you a question like, uh, what kind of music do you like? And you say, I, oh, I, if you've got a lot of these long pauses and you're not flowing with your language, then your fluency score will be low. Okay, so more about fluency. Fluency is not directly related to grammar or pronunciation. So, like, even if your grammar's bad and your pronunciation's bad, if you're flowing, you're gonna have a high fluency score. It does require that you have enough vocabulary knowledge to talk about a subject. So that is a problem, right? So if you're trying to talk about something but you can't catch the word, probably your fluency is going to go down because you're kind of trying to think of what the word is, right? So although on tests vocabulary knowledge is usually a separate category of score than fluency, I feel like vocabulary and fluency are very connected, and it's important to have both. It also helps to know words that help you organize your speech. So, like, for example, like I'm saying, so first, then the next thing was da 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 da. So, basically, just words that help you keep your language flowing. If you know those words, obviously your fluency will probably increase. Okay, so here are just some tips that I want to give you that might help you with fluency in the future. So again, you might take some test that has a fluency score, or you might be taking another class where fluency is something that you need. So here are things that can improve fluency. So the first tip that I have for you is to use a thinking time phrase. Many times you might need some time to think about your answer on some kind of speaking test. This could be because you forgot a word, or maybe you just need time to decide your answer. Using a correct thinking time phrase will make you sound more fluent. Not using them will make you sound like you can't speak English well. So here are some examples of thinking time phrases. That's a good question. Let me think about that. I haven't really thought about that before. So like somebody asks you a question and you say these phrases and it just makes you sound more fluent. So I wanted to give you an example of what I mean by this. Sorry. So here's two examples. Basically, I'm saying pretty much the same thing, but here I'm adding the thinking phrase and here I'm not adding them. So somebody asks you a question such like this. Tell me about a trip that you took before. Okay, so long pause. went to Jeju Island before. When I was there, I did many things. Okay, so obviously not good. Your fluency score would be low if you took a test. But if you kind of said like this, okay, tell me about a trip that you took before. Okay, let me think about it. Actually, I don't really travel that much. I did go to Jeju before, but it was a long time ago. I can't remember exactly what I did, but let's see. Okay. Whoa, I do remember doing this. Okay, so obviously there I didn't really say much. Like I didn't tell you about my Jeju trip, but I used a lot of these thinking time phrases, and as you can see, it just sounds a lot more fluent. It sounds like I speak English well, even though I didn't really say much. Um, so that's my first tip. Just a little extra tip is a lot of people will use thinking time phrases, but Korean people will use Korean thinking time phrases when they're trying to speak English, which sounds really bad. Like if you ever take any kind of speaking test, that's going to lower your score. So for example, I asked you, tell me about a trip that you took before, and you said, 뭐지? 뭐 했더라? 어디 갔지? Like, yeah, those are thinking time phrases and they're natural, but you're saying them in Korean, and that's gonna really lower your score quickly. So don't do that. Just use it in English, and you'll sound much more fluent. Okay, the second tip I have for you is that you have to master basic vocabulary. Like just students always want to learn really hard and difficult words, but if you just learn the simple words about many different topics, then you can really improve your fluency quickly. So many times students want to practice very difficult and uncommon words because they think it's more impressive than simple words. However, if your goal is to become more fluent, a better strategy is to try something that I call a topic cloud vocabulary study, which I'll show in the next slide. Basically, instead of studying random words, you think of a topic and then you can think about all the possible words that you might need to talk about that topic comfortably. So we can kind of guess that there are not that many topics to talk about in English, right? There's like travel and food and books and stuff like that. There are a lot, but there's not thousands, right? There's probably like 30 or 40 topics that are possible for somebody to talk about in English. So if you instead of just studying random words, if you study like this, I think that you can really improve your fluency if you ever take any kind of test. Okay, so like just quick example that I made was travel. If you study like obviously a lot of tests like that'll be a really common thing to ask about is travel. So first of all, just think of all the verbs that you would need to talk about travel, like stayed, flew, traveled, went sightseeing, bought, enjoyed, blah 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 blah. Think of the adjectives that you might need: crowded, busy, amazing, breathtaking, splendid, blah 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 blah. There are hundreds probably you could think about. Think of expressions, chunks. I booked my ticket, my friend recommended a hotel, I bargained with a street vendor, I got food poisoning, I saw an amazing mountain view, okay? So studying like this, I think, if you ever do have some kind of spoken test that you have to take, I really suggest this method. Okay, the last thing is using simple words to explain hard words. Okay, so there is going to be a time that you just can't think of a word. It's going to happen to you, you see me in the video sometimes, even I can't think of a word. This can happen to anyone. But in this situation, you should not just freeze. What you should do is to use simpler words to use what you mean. So for example, like look at these words. They're not really hard words, but let's say you forgot them, like a president, a waterfall, a passport, a reservation, right? And you're trying to talk about it. So let's say you wanted to talk about the president of Korea, but you can't think of the word. So instead of just saying Moon Jae-in is just use simple words like Moon Jae-in is the leader of our country, and he was kind of voted by the people to be our leader, but I don't really like what he's doing and blah 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 blah. But maybe after talking a bit, you can suddenly remember the word president. At the same time, waterfall, right? So like, yeah, I took a trip and we went to this mountain and man, it was just beautiful. The water was just flowing down from the mountain from very high, and it made a rainbow from all the things. And then maybe, hopefully, suddenly you can remember. Yeah, it was one of the best waterfalls that I saw, right? So, our time is running out. We only have 5 minutes left in the video. Let's see. Passport reservation. Okay, we have 5 minutes left. I think I'm just gonna have to quickly talk about the assignment. Okay. This week's assignment is to do a fluency building exercise. You're gonna record your voice on your phone's voice recorder application. Please be mindful of file size because on the CTL website you can only make a small file. So either lower the quality of your audio file or just make 2 or 3 recordings, okay? So this assignment seems a little silly, but it really is a great fluency building activity. So this is called a picture story reading. So basically you kind of show pictures of a story that you're comfortable with. This could be like a real trip that you took or something like that, or it could be like a fairy tale story. Basically you tell the same story several times, but each time you tell it faster and faster. Okay, so for example, this is Three Little Pigs. I chose this as my example because a lot of people know this story. If you want to do Three Little Pigs, you can do it. That's perfect. If you want to pick a different story like Hongbu, Norbu, Kongchipachi, whatever you want to do, you can do that. If you want to choose your own like vacation story that you took and you just want to show pictures of what happened, you can do that as well. You can do whatever you want, but just the point of this is you tell a story and the first time you tell it, you give as much detail as you can and you see how long it takes. Maybe it takes you like 2 minutes or 2 minutes and 30 seconds. The next time you do it in like half the time, and then you just try to tell the story as well as you can, and then you half it again, and you half it again, and you half it again until you get down to 15 seconds that you try to just tell the whole story very quickly. What you're going to notice is that the first time is a little tough. The second time you tell it, you're a little bit more fluent, but you just keep getting more and more fluent, and it just forces you to become more fluent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just do the assignment for you right now. I'm going to show you my example, and then I want you to try to do it as well as your homework. Okay? So check it out. I'm going to do it. Okay, so first time I just see how long it takes me to tell the whole story with as much detail as I can, okay? So this is the story of Three Little Pigs. Basically, there were 3 pigs and they were living with their mom, but their mom said, now it's time for you 3 little pigs to live on your own and to make your own house. So what happened was the first youngest little brother, he made a house out of straw. Okay, he was a little bit lazy and straw was really easy, and he made his house very quickly, and he made a straw house. The second brother was the middle brother, and he was a little bit more hardworking, so he made his house out of wooden sticks, and this took a little bit longer, but it still was not that hard, and he made his house out of sticks. The third brother he was the oldest brother, and he was a really hard-working guy, and he tried his best, and it took him a long time to make his brick house, but it was a very strong house. Okay, so one day this bad wolf came and wanted to eat the 3 pigs. So he went to the straw house, and he knocked on the door, and he said, "Let me in, little pig, I want to eat you." But the pig said, "No, no, no, please don't." So he huffed and he puffed and he blew the house down, but he was able to escape and he went to his brother's house. So the wolf went to the brother's house and he did the same thing. He said, "Let me in, little pig," but they said, "No, no, 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 no." So he huffed and he puffed and he blew this house down too. Um, so the two brothers ran to their older brother's house, which is the brick house. So the wolf tried to blow it in. He said, "Let me in." They said no, and he said, "I'm gonna blow it in." So he tried, but it didn't work. He tried again, but it didn't work. So what he did was he went to the top of the house, which is the chimney, and he went down and tried to eat them, but there was this pot of boiling soup, and he fell in there and he burned his tail and he ran away and he never came back to bother the three little pigs, and they lived happily ever after. Okay, so that's the first time I told the story. You can see that it took me 2 minutes and 17 seconds. So that's like my first run of the story. Try to like don't your first story should be a little bit long. So like try to do it at least 2 minutes, like about 2 minutes, okay? So now I'm going to tell it again, and I'm going to try to tell it faster, and this time I'm going to do it in about 1 minute and 10 seconds or whatever, 1 minute, okay? So a lot faster this time. Okay, so I'm going to tell you the story of three little pigs. There were three little pigs, and they were living with their mom, but now they decided to make their own houses. So the first pig was a little bit lazy, and he made a straw house. The second pig was a little bit less lazy, and he made a wood house. But the third brother was very hardworking, and he made a strong brick house. One day, a wolf came and wanted to eat them, so he went to the straw house, and he said, "Let me in, pig," but he said no, so he blew it in. Then he ran to his brother's house, and same thing happened. He tried to come in, but he couldn't, and he blew it in. Then they ran to their brother's house, and they said, "Let me in," but they said no. So the wolf tried to blow it in, but he couldn't because it was too strong. So he tried again and again, but it didn't work. Then he went up to the roof and went down the chimney and went to the boiling pot of water, but he fell down and he burned his tail and he ran away. And happily, the three little pigs lived happily ever after, and they learned the lesson, which was that you have to work hard so the other pigs maybe built a better house. Okay, boom. I did it in 1 minute. Now it gets harder. I'm going to do it a couple more times, and it's going to get faster and faster. So this time it should be about 30 seconds, but that's kind of crazy. 45 seconds this time. Okay, three little pigs. There were three little pigs. First one made a straw house. Second one made a wood house. Third one made a brick house. One day the wolf came and wanted to eat them. He went to the straw house and blew it down. He ran to his brother's house. Same thing happened. The wolf blew it down. Then he went to the brick house and he tried to blow it down, but he couldn't. So what the wolf did was he crawled up to the chimney and went down in the chimney, but he burned his tail and he ran away. And the three little pigs lived happily ever after, and they learned the lesson, which was that you have to work hard and be a good pig. And the other two little pigs learned that they're not going to be lazy anymore. Okay, 45 seconds. So now I'm going to try 20 seconds, okay? I'm going to try to do it really fast, okay? Okay, story of three little pigs. There was one little pig who made a straw house, another little pig who made a wood house, another little pig who made a brick house. One day the wolf came and wanted to eat them. He blew down the straw house, then he blew down the wood house, and then he went to the last brother's house, the brick house, and he tried, but he couldn't. So he went down the chimney and he fell down in the chimney, and then he burned his tail and he ran away, but the three little pigs survived and were lived happily ever after. Okay, I did it. Okay, so guys, that's how you do the assignment. I'm going to write more details in the CTL system, but try your best. Okay, one tip I have is before you try to do this assignment, make sure you understand the basic vocabulary. So like for three little pigs, you need straw and wood and brick and chimney and wolf and blowdown. You need the basic vocabulary. For whatever your story is, make sure you know the basic vocabulary, and then good luck with this assignment. See you next week.